Welcome to a pre-recorded webinar, DELMIAworks Hosted Managed Services, the most cost-effective deployment model. The speaker for this presentation is Tyler Frenzel from DELMIAworks. We hope you enjoy the webinar.
Welcome everyone to Hosted Managed Services, the most cost-effective deployment model. Let's jump in here. So there's some key takeaways from this presentation. Today, we're going to be talking about what Hosted Managed Services is. We'll talk about the functionality of it, what it does for your business, what makes it possible. We'll be going over the quality of life and savings for your business. We'll talk about some things that are coming to HMS and how to get you started in it. So these are the main topics of discussion today. I will be throwing in these interchangeably throughout the slides. So hopefully it's all coherent for you guys and well put together. So hope you enjoy my presentation here. A little bit about myself. I've been in the professional IT world for about 15 years now. I got my first start doing websites at the age of 16. I've been with DELMIAworks here for 6 years now, actually next month. I've been with the cloud operation teams for 4 of those years. So been here for quite a while, vast understanding of the software and what it takes to run it. And for the last year, I've been acting as director. So this is actually my 1 year as director, so I'm very excited about that. Things have been going very well, and I'm happy to see where we've gotten this department from where we started with it. So I hope you guys can see that too. Some of my previous experiences, I did some consultation for Boingo Wireless. I used to go on military sites and help install Wi-Fi into barracks and provide internet service. I've worked for Tech Systems and Bank of America, so some larger, bigger companies. But this is by far my favorite adventure yet with DELMIAworks, and I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. I'm stoked to be here. So you'll get used to me. So in my free time, I'm a musician. I do like to nerd out, and I'm professionally a drummer, and I play in a session metal band and rock and punk band. So pretty fun in my spare time, and a lot of the tech that I use and I've learned throughout the years very much helps me in my hobby, and it's a fun adventure. So enough about me. Let's jump into what HMS is all about. So what is the point of HMS? The main point here is that we handle the infrastructure to power your DELMIAworks software, so you don't have to. You can focus on your business needs, and that's very important. With that, it relieves a lot of the stress. You can add some quality of life to your IT, and we help complement them, help you run your business. Highly reliable, we're secure, and we're really the best at deploying our own solutions. So you'll see a lot of added benefits on having DELMIAworks run DELMIAworks for you. So as part of that, we lift and shift the responsibility of the infrastructure from your IT. We help your IT focus on your immediate needs on-prem. Overall, increasing their quality of life. They don't have to learn the complexities of our system or really deep dive into the meat of our product. And that's time that they can be better spent building out technologies, your infrastructure on-prem, assisting your team members on site, giving them more time to do so. Now, what is our mission exactly? So, like I said, we're designed to keep your business running first and foremost. We're highly reliable. We lower your initial investment, bringing you into the platform. Sometimes starting up a new ERP system, deploying all the infrastructure and the hardware to run it can have some huge upfront costs. Trying to run in a cloud infrastructure, you may not have team members that are well-versed or certified to execute that vision in a cloud provider, whereas we do. That takes out that learning curve. So certification processes, we're good to go. We're ready from the start. Another advantage to that is for your IT, end-of-life hardware can be a big hurdle. Maybe you're moving into DELMIAworks and your hardware might be a little behind. Maybe it's running on its last leg. So buying all that new infrastructure, putting in place, migrating to it. These are all areas where your business can suffer, you stretch your teams thin, you have people supporting a migration versus focusing on your immediate business needs. So executing this is very important for us because we don't have this end of life hardware hurdle. We can always spin up the latest and greatest immediately. We have a lot of tools with our IaaS provider, which I'll get into a little bit later, that really knocks us out of the park for us. And I've never had to touch a physical box. That's nice for me and my team. There's a lot of heavy lifting. There's a lot of configuration. There's a lot that goes into running your own data center. So we're very fortunate to have a very powerful IaaS provider, which I'll talk about a little bit later, and what they do for us. Part of that provider is scalability. On-prem, you will have physical limitations. Like I said, moving boxes around, building up data centers. Now this is mostly for your IT, but your IT needs space too. That takes away from your business. So this helps your IT run lean too. There's not extra equipment you have to have on site to run our software. It just generally frees up your IT resources to be more productive for you. So how do we make it possible? Well, HMS, 3 letters here: hosting, managed, and services. So right up front, we're hosting it for you. All the infrastructure that is required to run DELMIAworks for your company. And we do leverage quite an array of tools, primarily with Microsoft Remote Desktop Services today and an RD Web Client. And that RD Web Client's very cool and something up and coming that I'll be talking about a little bit later too. So second of all, managed and monitored. So we do 24/7 monitoring. This is all the infrastructure, hardware, RAM, CPU, databases. We watch for critical events, and we are aware of those generally before your business might be. We make sure that with that monitoring that your business stays running optimally and it's managed. We take care of all of it. And last but not least, services and support. We're here to help. We have qualified engineers. They will do your database reloads, backups, upgrades, maintenance, all pertaining to the DELMIAworks environment that we cater to you. Now, who are these engineers? Let me show you my team here. I'm really excited about having these people on my team. So I'm dead center right there. That's me. Director of Cloud Operations. So my boss, Chris Smallwood to the left, Vice President of Cloud Operations and Information Technology. I've been working with Chris for a little over 2 years now, or just about. He's really brought us together in this department. We're executing new advancements and vision that we could never do without Chris. So I want to thank Chris for that. Now with that on the other side, Stephen Breen, my DevOps engineer and lead architect. So he's constantly delivering newer and better tech that is always constantly improving your business, making things more efficient, leaner, more powerful, and we have to thank Stephen for that. On the other side, we have my system engineer, Paul. Paul's been with the company about as long as I have now. I've worked with Paul pretty much the entire time I've been here. He's very well versed in the understanding of configuring and delivering and building out the systems required to run the project. So he's our main provisioner that builds your environment. Complementing him is Chandra and Kyle, our service engineers. They are very supportive in helping us stay in contact with you, being available, and executing those needs, those database reloads, maintenance updates, you name it, they're on it. And all this wouldn't be possible without Gretchen, our project coordinator. Gretchen makes sure that we're delivering our projects on time and meeting your needs reasonably and effectively when you need it. All right, so let's talk about a little bit more of what we built here. So we've come a long way since integrating with the SO systems. This has provided us some opportunities that we are now passing on to our customers. So with this, we get to work very closely with another company under Dassault, Outscale. So what is Outscale? Outscale is a cloud infrastructure as a service provider. So you may have heard of Amazon Web Services or other competitors such as Azure. We used to use AWS, and while it's a great platform, it does have its shortfalls, especially working with their engineers, and what we can really accomplish with AWS is not even close to what we can do with Outscale today, because we have this relationship under Dassault systems. So most importantly though, they're just as secure, they're scalable, they're a compliant IaaS solution, and they have an amazing R&D department. They are constantly delivering and providing new features that we need daily. This is something that we do not get with AWS. We don't have a direct contact to their R&D. Like, this is really what helps us build and execute our vision, is being able to work with their R&D directly. So now, how is that? Well, it's mostly because of our partnership. With this partnership, we also see a few other advantages. We can offer savings above AWS and Azure that you will not see anywhere else. In some cases, up to 45%. Now, that doesn't mean they're not as performance, scalable, or secure. They have all three of those, just as good as AWS. And from what we've seen, as performant, as secure, and we have some of the best SLAs, and using Outscale, we have no issue whatsoever in keeping that up and running, which is very exciting, especially when you're making a big shift from something you're so used to, such as AWS. So today I can confidently say that I would definitely provision in Outscale over AWS or Azure, because I know it works exactly as I need it to, which is great for us. So with that partnership that we have with them, we can pass these savings directly onto you, which means more money for your business. And that means more money in your pocket, more to do, more to produce, invest more in your own on-prem infrastructure that you need for anything outside of DELMIAworks. That's extra money for you. So why Outscale? They're global and growing every day. They have a large footprint in the US East and West, along with additional data centers for redundancy. They also have European presence, and just recently built out some locations in Japan. So we are seeing a global presence from them, which is a shared vision of ours. So we look forward to, in the future, becoming more of a global entity. And having data centers all around the world helps us do that. Outscale does that for us. So we're really excited to get more excited. Sorry, we're more excited every day to get started globally. So looking forward to this. We also get a myriad of support and services that helps us excel. So while we provision and we build out all these environments for you, we have a direct contact with their services and support. This is something that we generally do not get with the other providers such as AWS and Azure. So we have a direct line of those engineers. They're the ones responsible for building and managing their data centers. We've talked to people on the ground. We know the people in those data centers. This is great. It's something that we normally wouldn't see with AWS. Much more of a hands-on approach, but we still get all the other support that those larger competitors would have. 24/7 support, ISO certifications, the languages that we need, and lots of documentation. And that's very key. That helps my team stay informed and helps provide and deliver the best solution for you. And like I've mentioned, quite a bit of certifications here. A lot of these that we can pass on and we know that we can handle. So health data hosting, ISO certifications, cloud privacy, cloud security, they share the same vision as we do in terms of how secure and coordinated and qualified we want our environments to be. They help us get there with this. So what does this look like? I know we talked a lot about what it is and hosting, and we like to think of it as more of as a service that we are also providing. But with the hosting, we do still manage servers at the end of the day. Now, the way we approach this is a basic overview of maybe a small environment might look like. Plenty of load balancing and connectivity to provide your EIQ DELMIAworks solution. Places to run your services that you need. This is more for our existing customers, your IQ Alert, your master home, where you're connecting your scanners to. We build out a comprehensive configuration that handles all of our customers, and we know what we can expect in the configuration all the time. But we have the ability to cater directly to you. We can build this out exactly how you need it to be. Now, the services themselves, not something that your team really has to worry about here. This is what my team deals with daily, and we help you get exactly where you need to go, and we try to make it as easy as possible for you. So what's up next? So we talked about the cloud infrastructure. Let's talk about support and services. So right now, like I mentioned before, we're trying to become more global, but for now, we are 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific, Monday through Friday. That is the same as our manufacturing support today. And they have some other services for 24/7 support, which I'll also get into, but we're available by our service desk, phone, and email support. So whatever works best for you, submit issues directly to our service desk. Just get right online with us. We're ready to go. Now, what if you need to schedule maintenance or updates? We're flexible. We'll help you when you need it. Obviously, if you're in production, you might not be able to cut away and do downtime to handle maintenance. Stress on your staff, stress during production, we'll work to you. What time works best for you? As long as we have some time to schedule it and make sure that we have the most qualified engineer on the job, we'll get it done for you. So after hours, middle of the night, weekends, whatever you need, we're here for you. This helps your IT focus more on their on-prem needs and helps them have more of a quality of life benefit too. They're not staying up in the middle of the night doing these upgrades, which keeps them refreshed and ready to go for you when you need them on-prem. And last but not least, Logic Monitor and PagerDuty. So we do have a 24/7 emergency hotline, and that's powered through PagerDuty. PagerDuty is also assisted by our Logic Monitor, which I'll get into a little bit later. But PagerDuty helps us give you a 24/7 hotline for emergency infrastructure outages. If you detect something's blocking your business from producing, give us a ring. We'll get the engineer on the line, and we'll get you up and running. So mostly, no one knows DELMIAworks like DELMIAworks engineers. We know the product in and out. We know what makes it tick. We know what makes it work. We know what makes it run. We're the best qualified authority to support your DELMIAworks software. So let our engineers handle the complexity of the infrastructure, relieving you and your team of stress. Get rid of that learning curve. We are well versed and can help work you through and guide you on executing your vision. All pertain to the infrastructure. And like I said, with our support and services, everything's custom tailored to fit your needs. All right, managed and monitored. So I kind of skipped around. I started with the hosting. I went to support and services. We're jumping back into the end, managed and monitored. So I think this is one of the coolest pieces that we have. I've run a lot of IT different businesses, managed a couple and consulted on a few. And while the really big enterprise companies have a monitoring solution, a lot of smaller shops might not be able to afford something like that or realize the value add that it can do for your team. This is included with us right out of the gate. So we design the environment to be secure and protect your data, endpoint encryption, secure access, industry best practices. So that's all pieces of the management that we handle. But the 24/7 monitoring with Logic Monitor, this is what really helps us excel. We can be notified about issues before they become problematic or may impact your business ahead of time. Things like pinging servers, checking the RAM, CPU usage, storage, your database availability and table space. If you're an existing customer, how many times have you ran out of user table space and had to talk to your IT guy to go and add it for you? we detect that ahead of time and we're adding those, you'll never hit that again. And most of all, this tool helps us guarantee our SLA with you. These are all things that can impact your SLA and keep your business up and running. So we monitor it 24/7 to ensure that everything's operating optimally. So, and like I said before, scheduled downtime and maintenance updates, we're flexible. If we need to upgrade equipment, if we need to push out new security updates, we'll work around your team's needs and we'll handle the heavy lifting on that end. And so PagerDuty lets us be in contact with you with any of those blocker issues. And I'll be touching a little bit more on that in a little bit. So with Logic Monitor, just to finish this one up, guarantees our SLA, 99.5% uptime for your infrastructure and database availability. This is huge. I know when I first moved into DELMIAworks, I was in the sysadmin side. I was on the support floor and assisting customers, and we'd once in a while get the call that their database was down and we had to get them back up and running. Some of these SLAs were things that they would easily be violated with an on-prem solution. I've seen really rickety builds. I've seen RAID 5s where 2 of the disks drive over the weekend, killing the whole drive and the whole system. I've seen engineers have to jump on it, provision new hardware, run down to the local Fry's or Micro Center and get a new drive for their servers. This is something we never have to worry about. So we can guarantee that 99.5% uptime on your infrastructure. Now with Logic Monitor, we can also tailor alerts to your environmental needs. So for example, if you're an existing customer, if you have IQ Alert or RT Server and you want to make sure that that's up and running, we can alert you for that. Do you want to know if your VPN is up? Do you want to know if you can reach the servers? We'll send you an email when we detect an outage on, your side or the VPN. Anything that's impacting your business that you want to alert on, if we can monitor it, we'll send it to you, whatever you need. We also provide customer-facing dashboards so you can view your own resources and infrastructure of the environment. This is something that I don't see a lot of other companies doing. It's giving you a lot of transparency back into your environment. I think other companies might be a little scared to do something like that, but we're not. We're very proud of what we've built here. And we're not afraid to show it to you. So if you want to look at those dashboards, we'll show them to you. You'll get some access into the alerts and warnings. These are a few examples. Now, some of these are table space and database related. Some of these are SSL certificates. Some of it is file capacity. So we know these issues are coming up. And I left these in here on purpose. We did fix these, by the way. So we can see here, okay, we got an SSL certificate expiring in 9 days. We know to renew that and get that rebuilt and configured into your environment before you even hit that SSL cert warning. Keeping your environment secure too. And then on the database side, there's a couple in here for system table space and users table space. We know that we're gonna need to expand your database to fit your growing needs and your data. And so we see that those are 90% full, and we're approaching alert to build onto that and expand your environment for you. So we help scale you out. It's proactive. We'll know about it generally before you do, and hopefully you'll never see the actual issue on the inside. So we're very happy with this tool and what it can give to you. Also with these dashboards, you will also get access to see these proactive alerts and warnings. So here's some examples of the dashboards that we present to you. So top left, VPN ping loss. So I've said VPN a couple of times, and generally today a VPN is still required to run the environment. There's a few perks to this, such as encryption and keeping your environment and your connectivity from your on-prem to the cloud secure, which is first and foremost. There are some services today that we do require the VPN to interact with some on-prem requirements, which I'll get to a little bit later. But with this, we can track and monitor what those pings look like, what that traffic looks like on that tunnel. So this is one of our busier customers. I won't say who, but we can definitely see that at one point we had an outage here on the end. And it's really short, really minor, but during these times, we can send notifications to your IT. So we'll get a notification on our end, we'll check our end, your IT will get a notification on their end, check their end, and we'll make sure that we can make that handshake happen. Some other things, top memory usage across the servers, CPU usage across the servers, so we can see those spikes, those loads, whatever you're doing on an interval, and making sure that it's working and performing. And our Oracle process utilization. We can check the tunings, we can give visibility into how much of the server you're using. Can we allow for more? Do we need to scale it up? Do we need to scale it back? So making sure that it's fit exactly to your needs. So let's jump back over to PagerDuty. So what is that? So PagerDuty is our 24/7 emergency hotline. We use this for blocker infrastructure issues. Now, generally, because we own the environment now, well, not own, we co-own basically, but because we have the hands-on to the environment, which is really what I mean. You don't always have access to know is this an infrastructure issue or not. So with Logic Monitor, we can give you those dashboards and stuff, but when in doubt, if you have a business blocker level issue and you don't know, give us a call. We'll make sure it's not the infrastructure, make sure it's operating optimally. If it's something else, we can dive into that too, but this is dedicated to the infrastructure, making sure that it's running as you expect it to. Now, I'm really proud to say that generally we have Logic Monitor send us more alerts to PagerDuty than we actually get calls. And that's because Logic Monitor handles a lot of these warnings for us ahead of time so we can be proactive and fix them before they're even impactful for your business. But with this still gives you a human on the other side of the line. We have escalations from level 1 all the way to level 3, which you betcha it rings me. I'll be on that line, I'll be fixing it for you. All right, so what else do we got here? Backups, recovery, and site reliability. So all this is handled for you in the infrastructure. Don't worry about your backups anymore. We take care of the database backups. You got binary files that we need backed up to run the environment, we back them up. Out of the box, we're doing full backups twice a day, a weekly backup and a monthly backup. And these are remotely stored, encrypted, redundant, but most of all, you don't have to handle it yourself. All these have different retention periods. We can hold your data as long as we need to, whatever fits your business needs. And on top of that, not just database backups and binaries, but we have full system snapshot recovery, and that's provided through Outscale, and we do those daily. So generally, getting a server up and down, we're talking maybe less than 15 minutes. How long will it take your IT to remove a physical box out, put a new one in? Do they even have a spare or swap? We have an endless array of images and compute instances that we can spin up and recover with a full snapshot. And this is all included out of the box. Now, site reliability, what else can we do? Redundant connections, border gateway protocol, VPNs, global connectivity. We'll work with your engineers to configure and secure redundant connections. We'll keep you online. And we also have some pretty exciting recovery options up ahead, which I'm really excited to talk about. So, bring that up. What's new this year? Warm site disaster recovery. Now you might be asking, why warm? Why disaster recovery? All right, so first of all, disaster hits a data center, what are you gonna do? Can't spin up new VMs in that data center. We need some sort of option. Now, we have all those backups and snapshots, but if they're all stored in a single data center, what can we do? We have to wait for that data center to come online. With warm site disaster recovery, we can provision your environment in 2 different data centers and have them replicated. This means that if we have a failure at one data center, we can bring you up in another data center. This is a premium feature that we've added this year. Our DevOps engineer, Stephen Breen, did a lot of great work on this to bring this at an affordable cost too. To give you some background, the only way that you would generally be able to do this, providing your own licensing and your own team, would be enterprise Oracle licensing. We have a custom tailored tool that we have developed in conjunction with some other services that we leverage that allow us to do this without a lot of the upfront costs of those enterprise licenses through Oracle, without the configuration and the complexities of using DataGuard. All this can also happen transparently. It's very cool. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more. What else have we got going on? We're DW 2020 and 2020X ready. This means new servers, Windows Server 2019, Oracle Server 19C. We also offer new, it's not really new, it's been around for a while, but we have the perfect tooling kit now for archive log mode and point-in-time recovery. Now, we've had some customers use this in HMS in the past, and it works with great success. We now have the ability to roll this out to everyone. So normally what you would have is a full dump of your database. And like I said, we do those twice a day. Most companies wouldn't even do those twice a day because those full backups can put a lot of load on the system. Now, archive log mode, what this helps us do is this helps us do a point-in-time recovery. We don't have to be relying on a full backup. So let's say you had a failure 9 hours after your last backup, you're going to lose 9 hours worth of data. Archive log mode lets us go back in time. We reload the last few redo logs, get you back up and running in a matter of minutes. This is killer. What else do we got? We have new remote desktop services web client. That's mostly powered through Server 2019. And I was very excited to see this come through. This is something we've been able to perfect in the last week or so, and this is mostly to prep us for DW 2020 and 2020X. We want to move as much of the infrastructure to the web as possible. This is one of the tools that lets us do that. Now, normally, Microsoft Remote Desktop Service, or you might be using Citrix today on-prem, you might have some compatibility issues between Mac and PC. I'm happy with the new web client for remote desktop powered through Windows Server 2019. We can give the same interface to both PCs, Macs, and even Linux boxes. So that's really cool. No more full desktop required. You can still if you need to, but generally we just wanted to let you launch the apps that you need and make it as easily accessible as possible, and that's what lets us do that. Let's go back into warm site disaster recovery. So, as a new offering, warm site disaster recovery. So why isn't it a hot site? Now, hot site would normally imply that it's ready to go, it's hot. It's fresh baked out of the oven, you can eat it right away. Now, warm site, we have these resources available and ready. With the nature of Oracle databases, there isn't really a hot site option available. So even with Enterprise Oracle and DataGuard, which is their form of disaster recovery to a separate database server, they still can only provide warm. So we're taking warm to the next level, and we're making it as fast as possible. So in here, we'll provision a secondary site to your production environment. It'll be located in a separate data center. The secondary warm site environment will come online when a failure is detected, and it'll take over production in the event of a major disaster. Now, the tools that we use, we can trigger certain alerts to trigger that failover. We can work with your team to discover what you deem is necessary for that failover. By default, the standby database is consuming logs from your production database. Now, if there's a failure in that last log that doesn't quite make it over, that might be that 5-minute data loss. In most cases, it'll be none, because as the database works, it's sending logs over to the standby and it's consuming those as it can. So even though 5 minutes might go by, you might not have had any changes to your database and thus nothing. This is still faster than any approach that we've seen from Oracle themselves. It's much faster than a snapshot, definitely faster than a full DMP. And what does it take really to handle that failover? Like, how long does it take for your company to get up and running on it? Well, some of this depends on your team's responsiveness. If you're in production, we have people that we can reach you on-prem and get you up and running as soon as possible. There might be a small blip where, hey, okay, we're in disaster recovery mode now. This is what you need to relay to your team. Now, from your standpoint, connectivity, it doesn't really change much, but there's a few resources we have to rely on for changes to happen, such as DNS connectivity, and we try to do that all behind the curtains as seamlessly as possible. Our objective is to get you up there within 30, 60 minutes without any data loss whatsoever. Now, we got a couple options for this. We got standard enterprise options, both of which require no action required by your team to keep moving forward. So let me talk about those a little bit. So the standard. Now, these are additional services on top of our traditional offering, which I talked about a little bit earlier, the backups, snapshots and stuff, that's all included. So these would be on top. as a premium. Now, I know a lot of enterprise companies, they need a one-to-one environment. But smaller businesses, they might not need an entire environment. They might just need their power users. So we give a standard DR option here, which is a refined copy of your production environment. It keeps costs down and lean. It's scaled back, but it provides critical and power users the access you need to keep your business up and running. Access to your sales orders, be able to print shipping labels, get that product out the door. Don't let it just sit, on the dock waiting to get loaded in the truck without labels. This is what that second site can do in the event of a disaster. Now, if you're enterprise, maybe you want more of a one-to-one environment. We can mirror the entire environment, an exact duplicate, handling all your production load and needs. Every user you have in production, we can have in the DR environment. We have that as an option as well. So what does this look like? So I got a little presentation here, a little diagram. So this is more of the enterprise offering. On the bottom here, we got our customer site, customer 1, customer site 2, barcode scanners, RT servers, workstation, printing labels, they're all there, and they're connecting to the production environment. Now, we can provide secure access into both environments via an IPsec tunnel. We have the replicated database server. And like this one, like I said, with enterprise, we're one-to-one. We have all the same EIQ boxes required to run enterprise IQ, shop data, smart page, whatever you need, along with your EDIs, your alerts, your web services, your scanners. So this gives us 2 environments to use in the event of the DR. So we're really happy of bringing this out. I know a lot of customers have been asking for more solutions like this, and I'll be transparent. We've, there's been cases where a sale was contingent on having a solution like this, and now we have it. So I'm very excited to see more customers joining and picking up this option. So what about what's coming up next? So we're constantly developing. Security is up in forefront. So we are trying to build out a plan towards the industry's best practices. We have some things moving with CIS benchmarks and NIST. We've seen more needs for Department of Defense customers and their auditing reporting needs and certifications required to do so. So we're trying to make great leaps and bounds here. And our goal for 2020 is to at least get a plan established and moving forward for this. What else are we doing? So small business offerings have also been something that we've been trying to perfect. We're aggressively moving towards a competitive S&B model for the future. Really refined, very tight, perfect for small business. And I hope that's something we can share with you very soon. So I mentioned a little bit earlier, we had some on-premise requirements. Unfortunately, not everything can be in the cloud. There's still some physical things that need to be on-prem. I can't put a label printer in the cloud. I'm sorry. I wish I could, but I can't. We ought to be able to interface with those printers too. You want a good firewall, side-to-side VPN capability. But even though a VPN is required, the majority of the software, we can provide access from anywhere today, which is something that we were able to introduce last year and do it securely. So this is really more for the meat that we need to connect to on-prem, RT servers, your scanners, your network printers, your label printers. With that, you obviously want the best connectivity to the internet as possible. This stuff's not running on your environment anymore. We're a little more subject to the weather and the environment, right? You got your fiber lines, hopefully redundant lines. Even this morning, before this webinar, I had internet trouble. And it's kind of ironic, I guess. But basically, I had to get on the phone with Spectrum, my provider, and get up and running. I only got one line into my house, and I was afraid I might not be able to do this webinar. So with that, redundant lines would have kept me up and running, right? So it's your connectivity to us. We want to make sure that you have all the avenues possible to do that. We'll obviously help you and work with you to establish these connections and secure it the way that you need to. So what other benefits and quality of life? So like I mentioned, we complement your IT. In the modern business world, IT is still a must. But we're going to relieve your team of the stress and the learning curve, the maintenance requirements of running this ERP software for you. That's a lot of time they could be spent doing other things on-prem. I've mentioned that a couple of times, so we'll move on here. Our biggest advantage here, lower initial investment and long-term costs. So we cut costs a lot with our IS provider Outscale. We pass those directly on to you. Now, getting new hardware to run the environment, the equipment, paying for that upfront, leasing, dealing with your own providers can be a pain. I know I've worked with CDW, Insight, and a few other providers in the past that they can have trouble getting you the equipment that you need, especially in a time like this. In COVID, shipping, trying to get new hardware from your providers, that can be rough. We can get that to you faster and over time lower your costs and expedite fees or anything else you might need to do. Prevent those end of life hardware requirements. You got some old servers, they're on their last leg. Don't worry about it. We can always provision you the up and greatest and latest. Keep those up to date and ready to go. For us, it's very quick, especially since we're not dealing with physical hardware. All right, so closing up here, you might be asking, how do you get started with HMS? So existing or new, we'd love to have you. I have plenty of customers that have lifted and shifted from an on-prem environment to our HMS offering, many of which who have been around since the beginning of it, some of which we have re-implemented on it. COVID's been a hard time for a lot of customers where they've had to re-engineer their business needs. This is something that we were pretty excited about. We did not see any of our manufacturing customers leave because of COVID for HMS, which is great. And during the entire time, they've been able to access their environment securely and from anywhere. So if you want something like that for your business needs, contact your CSM, your customer success manager. They'll ask you a series of questions. We have readiness assessments ready and waiting. They'll get in touch with the cloud operations engineer, and we'll cater our environment to you and get you the best quote and configuration for your business needs. Like I said, we're ready and waiting. All right, and with that, I'll leave this up to questions. So Leah.
Thank you, Tyler. Great job. We will now take a few questions from the audience. Our first one being, what are the recommendations around internet connectivity?
Good question. So we touched on this a little bit at the end here with the even my own internet issues. And you're always going to want to have the best connection for your cloud system. So fiber, redundant connections are going to be best for your corporate sites. Now, fiber mostly because you're going to get an SLA generally from your ISP. Redundant mostly in case one of your service providers goes down, like my Spectrum, for example, you have a backup, AT&T, Cox, whatever it is. In terms of speed, something if fiber is generally going to get you there. Cable's okay. Generally, anything that's DOCSIS 3 and up is going to be preferred. Cable connections will work fine for most end users that are remote. We came to an age now that it's hard to find anyone who doesn't have broadband internet remotely. I mean, even most people's phones are capable of a connection to at least get in and do some minimal work, which is fine. Next question.
Awesome, thank you. Our next question, one of our customers, they're asking, do we need to be on a specific version of IQMS, DELMIAworks?
So generally, most of our new customers are going to move to our latest offering, currently DW 2020 or 2020X, DW 2021 being on the horizon here. So we'll start seeing that pretty soon. For customers that are lift and shifting, we do ask that they generally move up to at least 15.3. We try to keep our environments as consistent as possible, but we do not force upgrades on our customers. Even our latest customer that we moved is still on 2013 SP3, which is fine. We do have the capability of running the older versions, but with some of the older versions, you don't get some of the better features that that really make us shine in HMS. So generally 15.3 up is going to be recommended. But yeah, if you're coming new, we're going to get you the latest and greatest.
Great, thank you. Next question is, I know you said fiber is recommended, but is there a recommended speed for a smaller user? They have approximately 20 IQMS users.
For a smaller environment, sometimes it's not always about how many users and more dependent on what they're doing. In terms of a speed, personally, what I would recommend and use would be something like 50 MIPS down, 10 MIPS up or more for the upload. Fiber is generally going to get you those numbers even, so 50-50. I wouldn't really recommend going below that, mostly because certain features, or if you're uploading documents and stuff like that, or you're downloading forecast back down to your own machine to work on locally. Maybe you're handling some email in the environment with Outlook. Those sort of things. It's going to be a better experience the more speed you have. I would say 50 MIPS up and down is pretty easy to obtain these days. If more rural customers might have a little more difficulty getting a line with a higher upload, but usually download's not an issue from what I've seen lately.
Great, thank you. Our next question, will users have direct access to the hosted services?
So that's a good question. Generally, most of the customers are going to be using the remote apps, which is powered through Microsoft, through the RD web page or the new web client page. They generally do not have access to the full desktop, but there are some cases where it is needed, especially for more power users, what we refer to them as. They might want to be on the full server to quickly do things during implementation. If you're lifting and shifting or starting fresh, sometimes it's a little easier to get started having access to the full desktop. But I would say 95% or more of your user base are just going to use the remote apps or web access routes instead. For those that don't know, a remote app, it would require Windows, but it will basically, the application runs on the server side and you are presented with the screen and the software on your side. It looks like it's running on your own machine, but the only thing it's really handling is mouse clicks and the display. So the web client is even better on top of that because it contains it all within your web browser in modern browsers like Chrome, Firefox, Safari. So that's all handled with HTML5. So generally that's where most of the access is going to be. With automation, we try to shrink the full desktop usage every day. We get new requirements from customers and have to cater a new solution. And depending on what that might be, we might roll it out to more customers or offer it. But yeah, it's pretty minimal on who has direct access to the hosted servers. In terms of the Oracle server, the database server, no one but my team has access to that server. There's multiple levels of MFA that we invoke to require access to those servers. And generally not even everyone in DELMIAworks would have access. We don't provide access outside of my team. So it would be a qualified engineer every time.
Great, thank you. Our next question, can customers have Active Directory permissions to create Windows domain accounts?
Right, so the Windows domain accounts are still required today, as we are still a Windows product. So since we are leveraging Microsoft Remote Desktop, you will need an Active Directory account. Traditionally, if you do not have your own domain or the capability of hosting your own domain, we host the domain for you. We always have a domain that's ready and can make accounts. My team would be managing and creating those accounts, managing their password resets, invoking security rules and permissions. Now, if you have your own domain on-prem and you would like to handle that yourself, you definitely can with the use of a domain trust. So if we do a domain trust, we would configure it as an external two-way non-translative trust. This is a requirement for Microsoft for the remote apps to work. If you're more comfortable with a one-way trust, it only provides full desktop usage and it won't allow you to use the remote apps. But effectively, the domain trust means that you'll trust our domain to see the accounts and credentials of your accounts coming in so we can verify that they are coming from a trusted source. So there are some security hurdles with that, and we generally go in more in depth with that one-on-one if that's something you're looking for. But ultimately, that would be the best way to give Active Directory permissions back into your hands. You would manage your own accounts like you do every day, your password resets, and your own security rules.
Great, thank you. Our next question, how are 24/7 escalations handled in the event I am down? What is the protocol?
So this goes back into the presentation earlier about what we refer to as the PagerDuty number. So all customers in HMS are provided an emergency hotline for critical blocker infrastructure issues. Like I mentioned before, this is generally more infrastructure. Sometimes if you might be down on your end and it might not be infrastructure per se, but you might not be able to ship, run a label printer, and in some way you might not know the best time to call that number. You're always more than welcome to call it if you feel like you're blocked, you can't ship, you can't produce, you can't access the database. It's a perfect use case for that. We generally recommend that sticks with that number with maybe your management staff or more of your power users. It does ring an on-call team member 24/7. We rarely get calls. If you've been up for a while, we tend to see it more at first when people are first getting started with the system and to knock out maybe some issues that they didn't validate or check for beforehand. But it's always there and available. Other than that, our normal support hours mirror manufacturing support, 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday Pacific. Now, in terms of any other 24/7 support outside of emergencies or escalations, we can accommodate upgrades and maintenance outside of our normal 5 to 5. We just generally ask that we have some heads up in terms of scheduling. So I need to make sure I have techs available to assist you with that maintenance, especially on a weekend or after hours. But it's totally on an option that we can do that as well.
Great, thank you. Looks like we have time for maybe a few more questions. Our next one from the audience is, what are your SLAs? What are your RPO and RTO guarantees?
So we touched on the SLA a bit in the presentation, so 95.5. In reality, our upload has been higher than that. Generally, it's a lot of nines, which is great. In some cases, I have environments that have been up 100%, and it really depends on the data center. Data centers are going to have servers that they have to rotate those, and we do sometimes, if they have a failure, we do need to rebalance the server and bring it up on new hardware. And that's kind of where we see that hit generally. Like being on-prem, replacing that hardware is going to be much more of a hurdle with a much higher downtime window, where it's generally rebooting the box. And that's fantastic technology, and I wish I had it 10 years ago. So generally, it's 99.5 on your contract. We've seen generally higher than that with our customers. In terms of RPO, recovery point objective, it can be up to 24 hours. We do snapshots to servers every day. If we're only having to rely on a backup and not a full server backup, it can be 12 hours. And this is based on our standard offering. Obviously, these will greatly vary if you use more of our premium options, such as point-in-time recovery with archive log mode or the warm site failover. The RTO, recovery time objective, is generally 12 hours, but we generally hit it in 4. But yeah, like I said, those are definitely in the SOW contract. You'll have that along with our service level credits information in the SOW. And if you're more curious on those topics, I suggest reaching out to a CSM and we can work through those contract details with you.
Awesome, thank you. We'll take one last question, which is, who will be responsible to refresh data on test server?
Gotcha. So as we mentioned earlier, HMS is going to be primarily the database team. So we handle all the backups. We also handle the reloads. So if you have a test or a dev environment that you want fresh data brought over from production, maybe you just did some data loads, maybe you have some new users coming on board and you have a training environment that you just want current data in, you just reach out to our team and you can schedule it with us through our service desk or phone lines, whatever's easiest for you. We do backups beforehand, so in case, just in case you have training data that you forgot was in there, or maybe someone was doing a test example in there and we overwrote it, we always have a backup we can restore to as well. Yeah, pretty much anything backup related, moving databases, restoring data, that's all going to be on HMS.
Great, thank you. It looks like that's all the time we have for today's webinar.
Thank you for viewing this pre-recorded webinar. For more information on DELMIAworks products and services, please visit 3ds.com/DELMIAworks.